question. So whenever you're ready, I'm rolling.
All right, my name is Charles Brown. I'm an industrial arts teacher at PS 721K, Roy Campanella Occupational Training Center. I'm the teacher of the adaptive design class. For this lesson is a 12 to 1 to 1 special needs high school class, freshman year.
Cool. Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so first question is, how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge? What was taught before the lesson and what will come after it?
Well, for this particular type of class, the students, or in this time of the year, they build upon small little tasks and little projects where they can be able to create a footrest. So the edging, the cutting, the measuring. We work on all these little tasks and projects to eventually create more broad products.
Good. So I'll ask you this. Is the text part of a sequence of text designed to build skills and knowledge? If so, can you give an example of other texts that form this? So.
Well,
okay.
One thing I would say, working with this population, I'm able to break down the task and actually analyze my own practices and abilities of the students. So for this class, I wouldn't per se use a chapter book or any long readings. It's more or less task analysis where students work in assembly line stations and they're given their task, they'd be able to focus on their independent task. And as you can see, they're able to create a product where every little task and every little step is able to create a collective project, which for this project is the footrest. So we have students creating the nails and sharpening and edging, measuring, and assembling, all to make, and then eventually painting to create one big project.
Talk about the standards targeted in the lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard?
Well, for this lesson, I use reading for information, with this population, I've learned that a text is not just reading long stories and novels. It's more or less for our students for me having to differentiate my instruction. I give them little task cards and have word walls and reference walls, tool walls. So even I look at myself as a text. For some students who may not be able to read, I can give them verbal instructions or give them pictures to go along with words or verbal instructions. So this one will be reading for informational text, along with also the CDOS, the Career and Developmental Occupational Studies standards. For this one, we'll be integrating the academics would be English and at times math, and also just being able to students with universal work skills, or students working together, working independently to complete a task within a job.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplifies?
90%. Well, this one will be providing students with an opportunity to engage in the work of the lesson. Where once again, for assembly line product, or students being able to take pride in knowing that they're creating a project and their tasks are geared towards creating one complete project. Then for this one, it will be the teachers creates the conditions for student conversation and plans tasks where students are encouraged to talk about each other's thinking. So there's some situation where I'll have group work, I'll have independent work, where more or less they have the task where discussions with themselves or discussions with their partners to all create one project. So everyone plays an important role in the completion of our work.
Moving to the shifts, discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Give me a second, sorry.
Sure.
Be building knowledge in the disciplines, and the academic vocabulary are key ones where, whether it's safety, whether it's students identifying tools and explaining themselves, more or less building upon the knowledge they already have, but taking away the teacher-led or the lectures, and more or less students working with each other and gaining the knowledge and working with each other to build upon everything they can do. So for me, it's more or less the little task cards and the sample boards and the cue boards. It's using those little things where variant vocabulary, differentiated task analysis cards for students, depending on the instructional or presentation ability, and then their method of response, to have cue boards where they can say this is good, this is no good, and then have in their own way explain why it's not good. So more or less break it down the content for my presentation and the students' response getting back.
Okay. How did you teach this lesson prior to the CCSS? What is the same and what is different?
I would say, but before the CCLS, it would definitely more or less be on the lines of myself going up in front of the class, telling students what to do, and more or less, and having maybe a chart paper in the top of the room. But at this point, we're trying to get it more individualized and group work, where students they can go to the how-to wall, go to the word wall, identify what they need and words that they have to express, instead of myself just giving them all the answers. So just being able to know where the resources are, how to attain it, and then to present it to their partner or to myself.
How did you support all Give me one second. Okay. How did you support all students in working with grade level text? For example, how did you provide scaffolding for students below grade level so they can read grade level text?
Well, for this particular class, where the reading and the writing ability it definitely varies within the 10 to 12 students in the class, I would definitely say I use a lot of pictures, hand-over-hand instruction, and more or less like individualized modeling. Because for this one, where it's very limited, even when I completed some of the student self-assessment, for the students who can write, they're able to write out their answers. For the students who can't, if they can read, I have them either we read it together, they read it independently, and just check off and more or less and give their honest opinion of they did a great job, did a fair job, or they can do better. And I definitely pride myself on the students being honest, where there were a few students that said they can do better, but just building upon that.
How did you engage students that were more advanced?
We definitely, when it comes to the assembling, where a student Mark in the situation here, he actually went to the locker, the tool cabinet, and he had to get a pair of pliers. Oh, sorry, I mixed up. Excuse me.
You want to take it?
Yeah,
from the top?
I take it from the top.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the question again?
So how will you create opportunities for students who are advanced to engage more deeply with the grade level content?
Well, okay. I said definitely with a situation like this, where at the time one of the students, the nail came out from the side. So I presented him with the tool. He knew the name of the tool and he knew what to do. So it's more or less getting the problem solving. So, and sometimes I have little issues where I present a problem, or I purposely may mess up something in the project, so the students are able to ask a question, say something was wrong, and ask them or have them figure out or analyze what can be done to fix it. So in that particular situation, the nail came out the side, the student used the pliers to pull it out, and is able to have other means to put the nail back in. Not the same hole, but more or less put in a different hole, where knowing that if you put it in the same hole, the same thing would happen, it comes out the side. So just break it down, more or less problem solving and working with each other and taking turns.
Did the students acquire the literary skills addressed in the lesson?
That one, yes. So they were able to use whether the cue boards or the task analysis cards. They were able to compare their work, whether a good sample and a bad sample, and actually see that, more or less self-assess with the work that's being done. So so instead of me, which even before the CCLS, I had to go around and check to make sure everything was done right. Now I'm giving the students the sample boards and the cue cards to know, and for their own self-assessment, that these are done correctly.
Last question. Let's see here. Or no, we have a couple more, sorry. Which indicators from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson, and what actions have you taken as a teacher to make that happen?
I've pretty much been to focus on the text. So, like I said before, definitely just varying the text that I actually use, whether it's verbal, written, from pictures, just giving students where knowing at which station they'll work in, who works good with pictures, who's good at getting verbal signals and verbal cues. So just building upon that.
Okay, let me just find those last two. Reflecting on the lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently?
But what worked well is more or less the students, they were able to, their routine is down packed. So when it comes to the getting the apron and the goggles and the gloves, they know what to get, they know where it is. So and then even when you can see the eagerness in one of the students, as soon as he got to his station, he started working. But just trying to preach patience, but the fact that they know more or less they have the routine down packed, that's probably the biggest thing that I've built upon. In terms of things I need to improve, definitely when we had a little rift with one of the students, one of the young ladies, was maybe having an off day, but me being able to recognize that maybe a little earlier on, be able to separate her from that situation so it wouldn't affect other students. So given she worked in a pair, but just giving her a situation where she worked along the assembly line with the edging activity, but she was able to have a little time to herself and cool down.
Was there any particular situations today that surprised you or pleased you with a particular student?
Of the particular student that I'd mentioned?
Yeah,
Or
just
or
today,
anyone?
was there any situations
Oh,
that...
more or less, the student, the young lady who she had a difficult time. It definitely, that was a little bit of a surprise, but just more or less, I'm pleased with the fact that I was able to recognize it, and even reading her body language and her partner's body language, is being able to separate her from that situation. But for everyone else, the few students who were doing the sanding, where more or less they need the redirection, they need the modeling, so just more or less staying on task. Because if not, they'll lose focus this real quickly. But just not pushing them too much, but giving them a little leeway, where reminding them to put on the apron and goggles, reminding them if they take off the goggles, put it back on, reminding them that not to mix up the good finished bin and the uncompleted work. So just more or less staying on task on myself to continue to work on and build upon.
You're done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.